What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. Let's talk about one of the most absurd, tragic, and maddening realities of this endless war. An absurdity that has been carefully wrapped in propaganda, distractions, and deliberate misinformation, fed to Russians, and pretty much like the rest of the world, like bitter medicine, slowly enough that nobody starts hating the taste of it and spits it out. What a long sentence. The fact is, peace has been on the table for almost the whole year, that's right. The war could have been stopped today, right now, but, well, Putin, the man claiming to fight for Russia's historical destiny, is the one blocking the exit. Not Zelenskyy, not NATO, not Banderovцы or the West, just one single man. And through an increasingly elaborate web of confusion, misdirection and straight-up BS, the Kremlin has kept millions of Russians from understanding one simple truth, that Russia could have returned to normal life a long time ago. Instead, thousands more are dead, millions more are poorer, and the country has been dragged deeper into a war it did not want. If Putin says he wants to end the conflict more than anyone else, why is it always him mocking peace talks partners, refusing to meet with people who can actually help stop the suffering, and increasing the pro-war propaganda in his own country? That is the biggest mystery. Well, it's actually not, but you get the idea. So if you've ever found yourself wondering, wait, why are we still even fighting? Get ready, because today we are going to rip the mask off this propaganda machine, starting with a simple proposition. The only thing standing between Russia and peace is Putin. Let's start with a quote. Peskov, Putin's ever-smirking spokesman, recently addressed Trump's offer of an unconditional ceasefire along current front lines. And this is what he said. This subject has been revisited. Russia has always provided an answer. He says it so calmly, so harmless, like he's just reading a meeting memo. But what does it actually mean? It means this. The Kremlin has been refusing to stop the war. Full stop. Let's zoom out a little bit so we have a better understanding. Trump has been openly offering a ceasefire formula that says freeze everything where it is, stop shooting, and start talking. Simple as that. Ukraine is okay with it, the US is okay with it, the rest of the world is okay with it. Even most of Russians are okay with this proposal, because if we look at the battlefield honestly, I mean, who can really tell the map changes besides a couple YouTubers and war-obsessed people? Nobody. Russians want cheaper mortgage rates, new Ladas at sane prices, not Ladas at the price of Mercedeses, and money not being yanked out of the economy to burn in Donetsk trenches. But does Putin want that? Absolutely not. Because for him the war is not about land anymore. It's about survival, his own survival, both the regime and as a human being. So, what does the Kremlin do? They build a smokescreen. They talk about peace treaties as though these must be some kind of settled before a ceasefire. They flood Telegram with posts about how Kiev is not ready, how Ukrainian nationalists will never accept neutral terms, or how Trump's offer is just posturing. And meanwhile, Trump's camp is saying that the exact opposite. Freeze the lines, call it a ceasefire, and then diplomats will figure out the rest nuances for years. Putin does not even want peace, he wants just time. And the only way he gets it is to keep Russian citizens confused, distracted, and divided on what peace even means. Because as soon as war ends, people start asking questions. People start seeing the reality. People do not feel these massive benefits from acquiring new territories and protecting Russian speakers as they claimed. Because all of this is nonsense. The Kremlin most likely knows it, and it is afraid for people to realize it as well. So the only thing left is lying in the best traditions of the Soviet Union, changing the reality itself, manufacturing new history. This is what helps the regime to survive for as long as possible. Let's talk about it in our next chapter. Russia's propaganda machine has two jobs. One, make the war look optional. Look, volunteers, they say. Look, contract soldiers making a fortune. And then two, make stopping the war itself look impossible. We will totally end this tomorrow, they say, but, as many of you guys already know, anything that comes before this but is meaningless. The West will not agree. Wait, no, it's Zelenskyy's fault now. No, actually, we would end it, but peace needs documents, clauses, formal treaties, blah blah blah, meetings of diplomats, whatever. It might sound stupid and simple, but it's genius level manipulation. Simplicity is always what works, right? So let's now take a closer look. There is a new narrative emerging in Russian media, one that says Putin wants peace, but he's working so hard on it. But it's very complicated, and if only the evil monsters in Washington and Kyiv would cooperate, right? This is what I call the good Tsar bad boyare strategy, updated for the age of TikTok, obviously. Putin's sleeplessly attending peace meetings. Meanwhile, people like Zelenskyy are sabotaging everything, missing calls, doing everything possible to delay the inevitable. But let's keep it real. You don't need a treaty to stop shooting. You need a phone call, a pen, and a clock. That's it, simple as that. Just two people can stop it all. Cargo planes were loaded in Afghanistan, ready to leave, hours after Biden made the decision to withdraw, for example. The US has not signed a formal peace treaty with Iran since 1998. Japan still has not signed one with Russia from 1945. But there is massive tourism industry and sushi restaurants in Moscow, apparently. That's why this peace treaty first and then settlement later argument is nothing but an excuse to stall. And yet, millions of Russians have been fooled, because this is a war fought as much in the media as it is in Donbass. Every segment on RIA Novosti, every expert on Solovyov Live, every Telegram post echoing Trump's ideas weak or Zelenskyy wants too much, all of this is just a part of choreographed performance to keep Russians uncertain and unaware. You can literally ask any Russian friend, if you have any, why Putin does not want to do anything for peace. And most of them will just tell exactly the same thing. Oh, Putin wants peace. It is Zelenskyy and the US that keeps making excuses. In different phrasing, but the idea will always be the same. And so now, guys, it is also your responsibility to change their minds. Because doubt is the Kremlin's greatest weapon. But if propaganda will be unconditionally one-sided, it will not simply work. That is the precise balance of it. So Kremlin has to make it look like people have choice to think differently. Let's talk about it in our next chapter. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you saw any Russian state media talk about the 2022 mobilization? Huge failure on the Kremlin's part, so you know what I mean, yes? You know, the one that tore fathers away from kids and office workers to the front lines and forced thousands to flee abroad? Well, that's right, the answer is never. The new narrative now is clear and unambiguous. There are no more forced mobilizations. Only patriotic men signing contracts for ridiculous bonuses. They are heroes doing all this because of their own free will. They have a choice to fight or not, and they make this choice. Kinda. Meanwhile, other Russians that are never showed on TV are dying in the fields outside of Avdiivka for $1,200 a month, while their mothers wait for compensation that never arrives. And even if nobody is talking about it, people know. They know that the war is not about historical borders, it's not about NATO, it is about something more primal, more dangerous. Putin's refusal to admit that he lost. That is his whole special military operation boiled down to a tactical disaster and just a moral catastrophe. But how do you even admit that after burying hundreds of thousands of young men? You don't. You pretend it never happened, that this statistics is the Western propaganda, and then you double down on lies. You create a false narrative. Either we fight or we surrender. That is what has been repeated for now. That is the trap. Surrender is presented as humiliation. Lost Crimea, NATO at our borders, Russians forbidden to speak Russian language in Sevastopol. And in return, war is presented as survival. Not victory, not glory, just survival. Humiliation and the defeat is of the nation, mind you, but the survival is of the regime. That is a very important difference many miss. This is classic totalitarian framing. If you do not accept continuous war, you must be accepting total defeat, black or white, that's it. But here's the truth. Right now, 145 million people are being told that their lives cannot go back to normal unless Ukraine gives Russia the cities it could not take in 700 days of fighting. And how exactly is Pokrovsk, as a part of Russia, should even make the life of a family from Udmurtia better? Good question for Kremlin. Let's do what the Kremlin will not. Let's count the cost. For almost the whole year, peace has been possible. For almost the whole year, a ceasefire could have been signed within hours, stopping the bleeding of resources and lives. For almost the whole year, millions of people could have returned to normal lives. And instead, Tens of thousands are dead since 2025 started. Hundreds of thousands of wounded, crippled, broken from both sides. Millions thrown into poverty. Trillions spent. Cities burned. All refineries blown to pieces by drones because there are simply not enough air defense systems to cover them all. All because one man does not want to admit that he lost the war before it even started. And the worst part, the propaganda machine knows how to twist even this into a victory. They film women in shattered towns like Marinka who say on camera, "I lost my mother because of Ukraine." Obviously, this can't be taken out of context. Don't you think so? And then they quietly edit in a narrator that tells you, "Look what Ukraine did to us," with the background of once again destroyed Marinka. And then how the country nods in approval because the alternative is just asking whether Putin's war is what destroyed their lives. All this is just too painful to face and, well, something that will never be shown on the Russian state TV. Meanwhile, Trump says he could stop it tomorrow. Zelenskyy says he would even accept a freeze. Even major Russian war bloggers admit that the front line has not moved more than a few kilometers in a whole year. And the costs are as horrible as always. Hundreds of thousands of casualties from both sides. Millions broken. For what? Another liberated pile of stones or another ruined life? The Kremlin is scared of peace, not diplomacy, not NATO, because peace what is forcing people to think. Peace forces them to examine what was done, what was lost, who paid and who was profiting. Peace makes it impossible for Putin to hide behind "we are fighting for a survival" agenda. You know what the Kremlin fears the most? Not Kiev's flag over Donetsk, not a NATO general in Kherson. It's just a simple Russian family, like millions of them, sitting just in the kitchen table asking just why. Why so many times the war could have stopped, but why it didn't? Putin is not negotiating peace, he's negotiating time. Time to steal more money, time to silence more dissent, time to spin one more TV segment where Zakharova talks about Western sabotage while Solovyov yells about sacred war. That is the mindset of this unholy regime. Well, there you have it, guys. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. Let me know what you think about the new studio, temporarily one. If you want to support our work, there are links down below, for example, PayPal donations, Patreon memberships. There's going to be an additional chapter in the end, by the way. Thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow.